It's been a long journey for us.
It has, but I'm so glad we're here now.
When doctors cut into what looked like a simple shaving bump, something inside him moved. That moment, the entire room froze. The nurse gasped, and the surgeon dropped his scalpel. What they pulled out of this man's neck shocked an entire hospital team and could have killed him if they had touched it the wrong way. Subscribe now, because true stories like this don't come from movies. They come from people just like you. And tell us in the comments, have you ever ignored a small thing that turned out to be anything but? The silence in the operating room wasn't sterile. It was electric. It didn't hum. It vibrated. You could feel it pressing against the eardrums like altitude, like the weight of a sky you suddenly noticed had been there all along. The fluorescent overheads burned too white. Instruments gleamed untouched on a sterile tray. A nurse's gloved fingers hovered, unmoving, a few inches from a forceps she'd forgotten to pass. Dr. Patel didn't speak at first. Her eyes didn't blink either. They were fixed on the thing half pulled from the open incision at the side of the patient's neck, and in that stillness, every small breath around her became evidence. No one in the room looked away, not even the tech adjusting the suction tube. A sliver of yellow-white tissue quivered gently beneath the tip of her instrument, and just beneath it, something curved, pale, mottled, and moving. "Don't irrigate," Patel said finally, her voice lower than the overhead fan, firm like a hand over panic. "Not yet." Alex Morell lay unconscious on the table, jaw slack, breath steady under anesthesia. His chart read 32 years old, stable vitals, minor outpatient procedure for suspected abscess with underlying foreign body. The plan was simple: drain, clean, close. But now, no one in the room moved, because what they'd uncovered wasn't simple. What they had uncovered was breathing. 7 days earlier, Alex was shaving half asleep in the soft light of the bathroom mirror. The kettle had just clicked off in the kitchen. Maya's footsteps padded overhead, slow and familiar. It was Tuesday, and Tuesday mornings were always tight on time. The razor felt dull. He'd meant to change the blade the night before, but after 12 hours on his feet in the bakery, he'd collapsed into sleep without even brushing his teeth. Now, bleary-eyed and running late, he nicked himself just under the curve of his jawline, a tiny flick like the sting of a rubber band. "Shit," he muttered, wiping it with the corner of a towel. A thin line of red bloomed and stopped, barely more than a paper cut. He reached for the cheap, blue-handled shaving brush he'd bought from a discount bin at the dollar store 2 years ago. It had shed bristles more and more lately, but he still liked how it foamed up his cream in the chipped ceramic bowl Maya had made in college pottery class. Rituals didn't need to be perfect, just familiar. He dressed quickly, gray t-shirt, flowered apron already half white from yesterday's shift, and grabbed the banana she always left for him on the counter, speckled brown, sweet enough to eat fast. Maya stepped into the kitchen just as he was tying his shoes, sleep still in her face, hair in a sloppy bun. "You're bleeding," she said, pointing. He pressed the towel back to his neck. Nothing. Razor slipped. "That looks deep." Alex grinned. "Earned myself a man's scar." She winced. "Gross. I'm fine." He kissed her cheek. "Don't forget you've got that parent meeting today. Don't forget to toss that brush and buy a decent one." He waved over his shoulder, already halfway out the door. On the walk to the bakery, the fall air was sharp in his nose. Sunlight slid across car hoods and sidewalks still wet from last night's rain. He passed the corner barbershop where Gary stood sweeping leaves off the stoop and raised a hand in greeting. The man nodded back. He forgot about the cut by 9 a.m. Buried under orders, and flour, and the sound of mixers churning dough. But by late afternoon, the area around the nick felt strange, tender, a little warm. He touched it once, lightly, and pulled his hand away like it had scolded him. Still, probably nothing. That night Maya asked to look at it. The redness had grown, faint but clear under the kitchen light. "Let me draw a circle," she said, uncapping a pen. "It's a bug bite." "It's not." He didn't argue. She was the daughter of a nurse, had grown up around gauze and antiseptic and quiet, efficient alarm. Her tone wasn't panic, it was protocol. She sketched a gentle circle around the swelling, maybe the size of a quarter, and kissed just beside it. "Promise me you'll check it in the morning." Promise. But in the morning he overslept. He pressed his fingers to the spot, still swollen, maybe worse. He didn't have time to compare it to the night before. He splashed water on his face, skipped shaving entirely, and bolted. The cut pulsed beneath his skin all day. A faint ache spread behind his ear like a hand pressing inward. That night he dreamed of tunnels. Not nightmares exactly, just the sense of something moving forward in the dark, something looking for a way out. He woke sweating, his pillow damp. When he touched the side of his neck, it felt hot, taut. The skin pushed back against his fingers like overripe fruit. Still, probably nothing. By Thursday evening, the ink from Maya's ballpoint circle had begun to fade, but the swelling had not. If anything, it had grown bold, almost arrogant. The pink flush around the cut had pushed past her drawn line like floodwaters, creeping toward his collarbone and up behind his ear. Alex stood in front of the mirror, shirtless, squinting. He pressed a fingertip gently to the area. It felt hotter than the rest of his skin, firmer too, not soft like a bruise. It resisted. Not pain exactly, but a tension that didn't belong. "Did you look at it?" Maya called from the other room. "Yeah, still red." "That's not an answer." He stepped out of the bathroom and into the bedroom light. She looked up from her laptop and stared, then stood, then frowned. "It's past the line," she said, voice flat. "It's barely past. It's not supposed to go past at all." Alex sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing his eyes. "I don't need to go to the hospital, Maya. You might. I don't want to rack up $1,000 bill for an infected zit." She crossed her arms. "So we wait until it spreads to your shoulder? Your spine? What's the plan?" He didn't answer. The truth was, he'd been telling himself it wasn't worth the cost since yesterday. Their insurance was the kind that called itself catastrophic coverage, which meant it paid for the plane crash, not the broken arm. He'd once paid $280 out of pocket just to get 5 stitches. They had rent due, car insurance looming, and the bakery was cutting hours. A visit to the ER was like playing poker with a deck stacked against you. "It's just a bad reaction," he muttered. "Or a clogged pore. Your skin is hot, Alex. It's inflammation." "Exactly." They sat in silence for a beat. Then Maya exhaled sharply, grabbed her jacket, and tossed his hoodie at him. "I'm driving," she said. "You can whine the whole way if it makes you feel better." The emergency room looked like all emergency rooms, overlit, overfull, and underjoyed. The chairs in the waiting area were plastic and cracked. The TV in the corner played a local news segment on mute, flashing captions no one read. A woman with a towel pressed to her forehead sat beside a coughing toddler. Somewhere behind the partition, someone screamed once, then went silent. Alex checked in, gave his name, date of birth, insurance info, and current medications. He was handed a clipboard and told to wait. They waited, for 2 hours. The swelling on his neck throbbed. His skin felt stretched tight, like someone had inflated something beneath the surface. Maya scrolled through her phone, expression unreadable. Every so often she glanced over, then back down, lips pressed tight. They were finally called by a triage nurse with freckles and quick hands. She peeled back the gauze Alex had applied at home. "Looks like cellulitis," she said, not unkindly. "Pretty common. Might have an abscess forming under there." Alex nodded. "From a razor cut." "Yeah, doesn't take much. Skin's a great barrier until it isn't." She marked his chart, took vitals, and directed them to another corridor. 30 more minutes passed in a curtained room with nothing but a chair and a blood pressure cuff for company. When the physician arrived, he looked tired. Mid-30s, thinning hair, stethoscope looped like a leash around his neck. He glanced at the chart, not at Alex. "You've got some swelling from a shaving, Nick?" "Yes." "Been going on how long?" 4 days. "Any fever?" "No." "Chills? Nausea?" "Trouble swallowing?" "No. Just pain and pressure." The doctor finally looked at the wound. He didn't palpate, didn't touch, just observed, frowned slightly, and pulled the curtain back. "Likely a minor skin infection," he said. "I'll put you on a stronger antibiotic oral, see how it goes over the weekend. If it doesn't improve, follow up with your primary." "I don't have a primary," Alex said. The doctor hesitated half a second. "Urgent care then. Or come back." And that was it. No imaging, no culture, no real exam. Back in the car, Maya sat with both hands on the steering wheel, engine off, staring straight ahead. "He didn't even touch it," she said. "I told you, no. Don't you dare say this proves your point." He didn't. She drove in silence most of the way. The headlights sliced through the dark like judgment. The heater blew warm air that did nothing to soften the cold between them. "I just don't want you to die from something stupid," she said finally. Because that's how it happens, you know. Not from some grand illness. From something dumb we think is nothing. Alex reached out, rested a hand over hers on the gearshift. By Saturday morning, the antibiotics had done nothing. Alex woke before the sun, drenched in sweat, the pillowcase clinging to his skin like gauze. He'd barely slept. Each time he drifted off, something pulled him back, pressure, heat, or a kind of pulsing sensation that didn't feel like his own heartbeat. The side of his neck throbbed with a steady, rhythmic ache, radiating behind his ear and down toward his shoulder. He reached up to touch it and hissed. The skin was stretched taut, firm as an overfilled balloon, and hot. Not just warm, hot like it had been set beside a flame. He sat on the edge of the bed for a long moment, head in his hands. Maya stirred behind him, then sat up slowly. "How bad?" she asked, already knowing. He didn't answer. She climbed out of bed, walked to the dresser, and grabbed the flashlight from the top drawer. She knelt in front of him, clicked it on, and gently tilted his chin up. "Jesus," she breathed. "What?" "The center's darker, purplish, and I think I see pus near the edges." He exhaled hard through his nose, jaw clenched. "Still probably nothing, right?" She looked at him the way someone looks at a loved one refusing a life vest. "No," she said. "Not this time." He tried to stand, but his neck resisted the movement like rusted machinery. Every small turn pulled something deep inside him. The pain was different now, deeper, almost directional, like it was trying to point somewhere. "We need to go," Maya said. "I know. No arguing? I'm too tired to argue." They dressed quickly. Maya grabbed their insurance card and the hospital folder from Thursday's visit. Alex sipped water, fighting nausea that had started brewing in his gut. This time, they didn't go to the local urgent care clinic or the crowded ER from earlier. Maya drove them to St. Edward's Medical Center downtown, a larger hospital with an actual infectious disease unit and a reputation for being more thorough. It was 20 minutes away, but on Saturday morning, traffic was light and the sky still held its gray. At check-in, the woman behind the plexiglass barrier tapped at a keyboard, asked for ID, and then paused as she scanned the system. "You were seen Thursday?" she asked. "Yeah," Alex said. "Different hospital. We don't have those records." Maya held up the folder. "We brought them. He was given amoxicillin. It hasn't worked." The woman nodded without really acknowledging the urgency. She handed over a wristband and gestured toward the waiting room. "Have a seat. Someone will call you." Maya glanced around. The room wasn't packed, but it also wasn't moving fast. A teenager was doubled over in a chair with a trash can between his knees. A man clutched his hand in a towel that dripped steadily onto the tile. A woman paced with her phone pressed tight to her cheek, her eyes darting every few seconds toward a closed set of doors. Alex leaned his head back against the wall and closed his eyes. His neck throbbed in time with his pulse. It felt like something was pressing outward, trying to make space inside him that didn't exist. After an hour, a nurse called his name. This nurse was older than the first, late 40s maybe. Her face calm, voice brisk but kind. She looked at the wound and frowned. "That looks worse than cellulitis," she said. "Thank you," Maya muttered. The nurse didn't smile, but there was something like solidarity in the way she said, "Let's get you into a room." They were taken to a curtained bay in the back where another nurse took vitals. Alex's blood pressure was elevated. His temperature was 99.9, not alarming, but not nothing. When the physician arrived 10 minutes later, she introduced herself as Dr. Patel. Her presence changed the atmosphere immediately. She didn't rush. She pulled up a stool, met Alex's eyes, and listened. "Walk me through everything from the beginning," she said. Alex explained. The razor, the cut, the delay, the first hospital visit. He left out the dreams, though something in her expression made him think she'd have believed them. When he finished, Patel nodded slowly. "Let's have a look." She snapped on gloves and palpated gently around the swelling. Alex flinched. "Any numbness?" He hesitated. "A little, tingling down my collarbone." Patel paused, then said, "We're going to do some imaging. I want to know what's underneath before we do anything invasive." Maya looked relieved. Alex exhaled. Patel stood and turned to the nurse. "Let's get a bedside ultrasound. If that doesn't tell us enough, we'll order a CT. "Do you think it's an abscess?" Maya asked. "Maybe," Patel said. "But if it is, it's behaving oddly." They waited another half hour before the portable ultrasound machine arrived, wheeled in by a young tech who didn't say much. Patel returned, applied gel to Alex's neck, and began to move the probe slowly across the swelling. Everyone watched the screen. Black and white patterns danced and shifted, Tissue layers, fluid shadows, pulsing lines. There, Patel said quietly. What is it? Maya asked. Patel didn't answer right away. Her mouth was a thin line. She angled the probe again, then froze the image. On the screen, nestled in the hypoechoic pocket of fluid, was a pale oval shape. Inside it, something darker pulsed, slowly, deliberately. Maya leaned forward. That's not… Is that? Alex just stared, not fully registering what he was seeing, only that it didn't belong to him. Patel lowered the probe. We're going to need ENT and general surgery, she said calmly. No irrigation. Leave the incision small. Her tone had changed. There was no panic in it, but there was something else. A quiet choreography, like chess pieces beginning to move across the board. Alex looked from her face to Maya's. What is it? Patel met his eyes. There's something in there, Alex. A foreign body. And it appears to be alive. They moved quickly, though no one appeared rushed. That was the strange thing about hospitals. Urgency dressed itself in calm. When the surgical resident arrived, she introduced herself simply as Dr. Lamb and nodded at Patel without needing more than a glance at the scan. And followed 5 minutes later, another doctor with eyes sharp behind narrow glasses. The room began to shift around Alex, invisible gears clicking into place. A surgical consent form appeared. Maya hovered, eyes locked on the paper as if willing it to make sense. Alex signed it with a hand that didn't feel like his own. We'll use local anesthesia for now, Patel explained. If we need to escalate, we'll go to, but I'd like to try a minimal incision first. We want to avoid disturbing whatever's in there. She didn't say the word parasite, not yet, but it hung in the air anyway. They wheeled him into a minor procedure room, a small, bright space that smelled like antiseptic and tension. The lights overhead were harsh. The metal tray beside him clinked quietly as someone laid out instruments. A nurse clipped back his hairline. Another painted the side of his neck with iodine, a golden bloom across inflamed skin. This'll pinch, someone warned. Lidocaine slipped in like a thief, stealing sensation in wide arcs across his jaw and neck. He felt the pressure but not the pain, as Patel made the first incision. Everything after that happened slowly. It wasn't the slowness of doubt, it was the deliberate, careful slowness of people who understood that one wrong move could rewrite everything. Alex stared at the ceiling tiles, counting them like beads. 1, 2, 3. The vent hummed above him. He could feel Patel working, pressure, then release, then more pressure. Initial fluid release, she said. Cloudy, not foul-smelling. Could be standard, Dr. Lamb murmured. No overt necrosis, Patel added. Then she paused. Everyone in the room knew the pause was significant. I'm seeing a structure, she said. Pearly membrane, anterior position, doesn't look like pus. Silence settled like a blanket. Someone adjusted the light. A nurse stepped closer. Patel used a retractor to open the incision another millimeter. There's resistance, she said softly. What kind? Lamb asked. Not scar tissue. It's yielding. Slowly. A tremor beneath her instrument. The nurse made a noise that wasn't quite a gasp. Movement, Patel confirmed. Not him? Lamb asked. No, it's inside. The sentence fractured something in Alex's chest. A quiet crack of understanding, awful and cold. Ultrasound again, Patel said. The probe returned. Black and white shimmered across the monitor once more. The oval was clearer now. The center of it pulsed with a distinct rhythm. Not cardiac, not vascular, voluntary. I don't think this is bacterial, Patel said. Larval? Lamb asked, carefully neutral. Most likely. Alex's stomach lurched, though he couldn't feel much below his chin. The word didn't register at first. Then it did. A larva. Something living, feeding, growing inside him. Patel didn't change her tone. She spoke with the practiced clarity of someone keeping the room anchored. We'll apply ointment over the opening. Occlusion may prompt migration. The scrub tech handed her a small tube. She dabbed a bead of ointment over a tiny pore-like structure just above the membranous curve. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the thing moved. It wasn't dramatic, not a horror movie lunge, but it shifted with intent, the front end angling toward the incision, responding to light and space and the invisible invitation of air. Breathing spiracle exposed, Lamb said. Definitely larval. Possibly dipteran. Let's remove it intact. Patel grasped the visible end with a pair of delicate forceps. The larva resisted, anchoring itself deeper into the tissue with microscopic hooks along its body. Do not rupture, she reminded. Alex's breathing quickened, though he couldn't move his head. His pulse thudded behind his ear, thudding against the surgical field. Maya wasn't allowed in the room, but he imagined her pacing outside, arms crossed tight. "Steady," someone whispered, maybe to Patel, maybe to themselves. The larva gave ground in tiny increments, 1 centimeter, then another. The rear portion emerged, glistening and white, tapered at the end. "Almost," Patel said. "Don't rush." A final tug. It came free with a slick sound that turned the room into silence. Patel held it up. It was the length of her pinky finger, segmented, slightly translucent and undeniably alive. No one spoke for a second. Then the nurse said, very softly, "Oh my God." Patel didn't answer. She turned to the specimen dish and placed the larva inside. Its body twitched once, then stilled. But that wasn't the end. As Patel returned to the wound site to inspect the cavity, her forceps caught on something else, rigid, unlike the soft tissue around it. "What is that?" Lamb asked. Patel widened the track slightly. A thin, pale filament was embedded along the inner wall. She teased it loose and pulled. It came out slowly, too slowly for something inanimate. Attached to the end was a fragment of plastic, pale blue with a jagged ring where it had snapped. Patel turned it over in the light. Her voice, when she spoke, was low and even. "Foreign body. Synthetic. Likely from a shaving brush." She looked at Alex. This was the anchor. The larva used it like a ladder. The silence after that was different than before. Not the silence of discovery, but of comprehension. The kind of silence that follows something unforgettable. When Alex opened his eyes, the ceiling was unfamiliar. It was too white, too flat, too still, like staring at the surface of a frozen lake from underneath. His body felt wrong, as though it wasn't fully his yet. His throat was dry. His lips stuck together when he tried to speak. Maya was there before he could finish a sound. She leaned in from the side of the bed, brushing a curl of hair behind her ear, eyes wide and wet but not crying. "Hey," she whispered. "You're okay." He didn't answer at first, not because he couldn't, but because he wasn't sure okay applied. His neck ached deeply, like something had been torn out and left a void in its place. He reached up instinctively. Bandages, gauze, medical tape pulling gently at his skin. Beneath it he could still feel the echo of pressure, of violation. "What did they take out?" he asked, his voice more rasp than sound. Maya hesitated. She looked down, then back at him. Her expression was careful. "You really want to know?" Alex nodded. She reached down to the small hospital drawer and lifted a sealed specimen jar. Inside floated something pale, curled, and still faintly grotesque, even in death. Segmented body, slight bend at one end, like a shrimp peeled too late. Alex blinked. "You're kidding," he said, barely above a whisper. "It was alive," Maya replied. "The doctors think it used the plastic fragment as an anchor." "What fragment?" She pulled a second jar from the same drawer. In this one, a jagged ring of translucent blue plastic, still streaked faintly with tissue residue. Alex stared at it for a long time. "That's from my brush," he said. Maya nodded. Alex closed his eyes. He could still feel it. He would always feel it now. The moment where his body had been home to something that didn't belong. And worse, something that had made use of what he'd neglected. Cheap, broken, overdue for replacement. He had let it stay because it was familiar, because it was cheap, because he didn't think it mattered. "Dr. Patel said they've seen cutaneous myiasis before," Maya said quietly, as if afraid the words might disturb him. "But never like this, never with a plastic anchor. They think that's what prevented the immune response from expelling it." He kept his eyes shut. "I didn't throw it away, because I didn't want to spend $15 on a new one. I know, I risked my life over $15. Maya didn't respond. He opened his eyes again and turned his head carefully toward her. "She's still here?" he asked. "Dr. Patel?" "Yeah. She wants to speak with you when you're up for it. She's been amazing, Alex. She pushed them to take it seriously. You were lucky." He wanted to laugh, but it caught in his throat. "Yeah, real lucky." Later that day, Dr. Patel arrived with a quiet knock and a clipboard held against her chest. She greeted Maya first, then Alex, her tone steady, measured, respectful. "You look better than yesterday," she said. "Vitals are good, inflammation's down. We'll keep you overnight for observation, but there's no sign of deeper infection." She pulled a chair close and sat. "I want to walk you through what we found," she continued. I know Maya already gave you the visual. Alex nodded faintly toward the jars on the table. The larva was identified as a Dermatobia hominis, human botfly, rare but not unheard of. What's unusual is the presence of the plastic fragment. We believe it created a microenvironment that shielded the larva from both detection and rejection. Essentially, it was a perfect home. Alex swallowed. I bought that brush 2 years ago, he said. It was from a dollar store. The bristles always fell out. I never thought you couldn't have known, Patel said gently, but it might explain what we found. She opened her folder and pulled out a printed sheet. It was an incident report. On the bottom corner, Alex saw the brand, Gentle Edge Premium Synthetic Shaving Brush. There have been at least 6 similar complaints, Patel said, all minor so far. Bristles snapping at the base, plastic ring dislodging from the handle. No official recall has been issued. Maya sat forward. Wait, so they know it's defective, and it's still being sold? Patel nodded. There's no legal requirement for a recall until enough injuries are documented. Most are never formally reported, and in this case, well, your situation is unique. Alex stared at the printed name. They sell this thing in drugstores. They sell worse, Patel said. She leaned forward slightly, her voice dropping just a little. We see this a lot. Products made cheap to meet price points. No long-term durability testing. Imported from factories with little oversight. Once it's in circulation, it takes serious harm or serious lawsuits for change to happen. Alex clenched his jaw. So I was the canary. You were the warning, Patel said. She stood, but not before resting her hand gently on the edge of his bed. You're going to be okay, Alex. Physically, at least. But I know this experience can leave something behind. Something bigger than the scar. He met her eyes. There was no pity in them. Only clarity. I won't forget, he said. Good, she replied. And then she was gone. Alex looked at Maya, then back at the specimen jar. The larva floated gently in its fluid, opaque and suspended like a bad dream sealed in glass. Then his eyes shifted to the blue plastic ring. He remembered how it used to feel in his hand. Smooth, familiar, almost soft. He would never see it that way again. Alex came home on a Sunday afternoon that looked exactly like every other Sunday afternoon. Cloudless, crisp, silent. The house was clean. The curtains were half drawn. The kitchen smelled like lemon cleaner and basil. The hum of the fridge was steady, familiar, and none of it felt real. He stood in the doorway for a full minute, backpack slung over one shoulder, discharge papers tucked under his arm, the gauze on his neck pulling slightly when he breathed. Maya reached to take the bag, and he let her, wordlessly. You want to lie down? She asked. He shook his head. No. I want coffee. She nodded and turned toward the kitchen, but he didn't move from the spot. His feet felt anchored. He stared at the mirror by the hallway, not into it, just near it. Close enough to see the outline of himself, but too far to meet his own eyes. Later, with a mug between his hands and the steam curling upward, he sat on the couch while Maya cleaned up the documents they'd brought home. He didn't drink the coffee, just held it. There's an email from Dr. Patel, she said gently. He didn't look up. She attached the final report and a scanned copy of the pathology results. Also a note saying she submitted a safety concern to the Consumer Product Safety Commission. Still, he said nothing. Alex, I know. Do you want me to read it to you? No. She hesitated. He closed his eyes. It wasn't that he didn't appreciate the effort. He did. Maya had held his hand through the worst of it, spoken for him when his voice had failed, argued with administrators, caught things nurses forgot. But now that he was home, now that the monitors were gone, and the nurses were no longer standing at arm's length, the world expected him to return to something, and he didn't know what he was supposed to return to. His body felt unfamiliar, not in pain, not even uncomfortable, just foreign, like he was occupying something that had betrayed him. That evening, she made soup and he barely touched it. She curled up beside him with a blanket and a documentary about coral reefs, something gentle, slow, far from anything clinical. But every time he looked at the ocean worms on the screen, all he could think of was the larva's spiracle twitching under his skin. He didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, he checked the email from Dr. Patel. There were 2 attachments. One was a standard post-operative care summary. The other was a copy of her incident report to federal regulators. The email read, Patient experienced cutaneous infestation with larval organism, likely Dermatobia hominis, with retention and encapsulation around a plastic fragment consistent with consumer grooming accessory. Manufacturer, Gentle Edge Products LLC. Submitted concern to CPSC. Will notify patient of any formal product action taken. No mention of liability. No word on a recall. He scrolled further. Another email from the brand itself. Automated generic. We appreciate your feedback and are sorry to hear about your experience. While there is currently no formal recall in place, we are conducting an internal investigation. As a courtesy, we would like to offer a $10 store credit toward your next Gentle Edge purchase. Alex read it twice. Then he deleted it. By the third day home, Maya sat him down at the kitchen table and said, I think we need to talk about what comes next. I go back to work, he said flatly. I meant besides that. He looked at her, the first real look he'd given in hours. Her hair was pulled back tightly, her eyes red at the edges from worry she wasn't voicing. She had aged in a week. Maybe he had. You don't think going back is enough? I think you're carrying something you're not naming. He stood, walked to the sink, stared out the window. They pulled a living thing out of my body, Maya, I know. A living thing that used a piece of garbage I never threw away to build itself a home. I carried it. I protected it. I fed it without knowing. You didn't do anything wrong. He turned sharply. Didn't I? I ignored the signs. I said it was nothing. I chose not to go in because I didn't want a hospital bill. I let it grow because I was afraid of debt. Maya didn't flinch. Everyone's afraid of debt, Alex. He leaned against the sink, shoulders slumped. You know what I keep thinking about? He said. The phrase the nurse used. Cutaneous myiasis. Sounds so clinical. Like I was a research specimen. Like my pain was just another case file. She stood and walked to him. You weren't a specimen, she said. You were a warning. And maybe someone needs to hear it. You mean tell people? He scoffed. Go on TV? Be the bot fly guy? I'm serious. So am I. She folded her arms. What if some other guy's out there using the same brush and ignoring the same signs? What if his hospital doesn't have a Dr. Patel? Alex opened his mouth, then closed it. He didn't want to be the face of a cautionary tale. He wanted to forget. But the scar on his neck wasn't going away, and neither was the knowledge of how close he'd come to something worse. Maybe later, he said. She nodded, but her eyes said, I hope it's not too late by then. That night, as he lay awake in bed staring at the ceiling fan, Alex realized something Maya hadn't said, maybe because she didn't have to. It wasn't about the larva. Not anymore. It was about how easily small things become monsters when no one bothers to stop them. The second wound came quietly. It started as a pinch. Not a pain, just a strange awareness. Like when you wear a shirt with a crooked tag, and it brushes the same spot again and again until you finally notice it's been irritating your skin all day. That's how it felt on Alex's neck, just below the opposite ear, exactly 1 week after he came home. At first, he ignored it. It wasn't hard. The days were filled with small tasks, responding to texts from coworkers, filing out temporary leave paperwork, checking the mail. Maya insisted he rest, but resting was its own kind of noise. So he kept moving, hoping his body would eventually feel like his again. But by Wednesday, the pinch had become a throb. He checked the mirror that morning and saw it, a faint swelling beneath the skin. Not red, not hot, just there, round, subtle. But undeniably something. He didn't tell Maya immediately. Maybe part of him still hoped it was phantom pain. Maybe he didn't want to see the fear on her face again, or maybe he just didn't want to admit that the story wasn't over yet. But she noticed anyway. They were sitting at the kitchen table, eating quietly. He was finally managing full meals again, when her eyes landed on his neck. Her fork stopped midair. Is that? He touched the spot reflexively. Yeah. How long has it been there? I noticed it this morning. She dropped her fork. And you didn't say anything? He sighed. Because I didn't want it to be something. Well, it is something. She was already getting up, grabbing her phone, looking for the hospital contact card they'd pinned to the fridge. The way she moved, urgent, focused, told him there would be no talking her out of it. I'll call Patel's office directly, she said. We're not going through ER this time. I don't care if we have to sit in her hallway for 8 hours. We're not waiting. They didn't wait 8 hours. Dr. Patel saw them the next afternoon. She didn't rush. She didn't downplay. She simply looked at the swelling, then at Alex's face, and said calmly, We'll scan it. They went straight to imaging. Patel stayed with them the entire time, hands clasped behind her back, eyes locked on the monitor while the tech ran the probe across Alex's neck. The new swelling was deeper than the first. It wasn't red, it wasn't inflamed, but something was there. The screen showed a small oval structure, dense, unmoving, no pulsing, no fluid pocket, but close, very close, to the carotid artery. "What is it?" Maya asked. Patel didn't answer right away. "It's not another larva," she said finally. "No vascular interaction, no movement. It's not organic." Alex turned his head slightly. "Then what is it?" Patel narrowed her eyes, adjusted the angle. The tech paused the screen. "It's plastic," she said. "Another foreign body, smaller, jagged on one side. Looks like a second piece of the original fracture." Maya's mouth opened, then shut again. Alex stared at the screen. "Wait, you're telling me that was in me this whole time?" Patel nodded. "It must have dislodged during the first surgery, but didn't exit with the larva. It probably migrated slowly along tissue planes until it embedded itself here." Alex felt cold, not angry, betrayed. "You said the wound was clear." "It was," she said calmly. "At least, that's what the scans showed. We had no reason to assume there was a second fragment. The body often walls off foreign objects. It might have been too deep to see at the time." Maya stepped forward. "So what now? We'll monitor it. It's not infected. There's no inflammation, no acute danger. But if it migrates closer to the artery, we'll have to intervene. And this time, we'll make sure every square millimeter is scanned thoroughly post-op." Alex closed his eyes. How many more pieces could there be? Patel didn't answer that. Back home, Alex sat on the couch with a heating pad wrapped around his neck, not for comfort but for containment, as if holding the area still would stop the thing inside from shifting further. Maya sat across from him, her hands resting on her knees. "You're quiet," she said. "I feel like a factory recall." Maya smiled gently. "Well, the factory sucked." He didn't laugh. "They left part of it inside me," he said. "They missed it. It wasn't Patel's fault. No, but it's someone's fault." He leaned forward. "I keep thinking, if this had been someone else, someone without insurance, someone who didn't push for imaging, what happens then? They just live with it? Until it punctures something vital? Or turns into another headline?" Maya nodded. "A lot of people don't even get that far. Most wouldn't have gone back in the first place." He looked at her. "I almost didn't. You did." He ran a hand through his hair. "This whole system, it's not just slow, it's reactive. They only look when we make noise. They only treat what screams loud enough." There was a long silence. Then Maya said, "Maybe it's time you make some noise." He looked up. She pulled her phone from her pocket and opened an email draft. "I've already started writing to a few outlets," she admitted. "Health watchdog groups. A podcast I follow. I used to teach persuasive writing, remember? I can pitch. But it means more coming from you." He stared at the screen. "It's one more scar, Alex. But maybe this one helps someone else not get theirs." He didn't answer immediately. Then finally he reached for the phone. Alex didn't sleep the night before the interview. It wasn't exactly fear, more like exposure, a kind of emotional nudity. He kept thinking about the sound his voice would make once it left the protective walls of their living room. The words would be out there, living separate from him, without tone or context or warmth, just the facts. And the facts were strange enough to sound fictional. "You don't have to do this," Maya said, as they set up the mic on the kitchen table. The host of the podcast, a soft-voiced woman named Liza, had sent a link for the remote session, plus a few questions in advance. "We can pull out any time." "I know," Alex said, adjusting the gain knob. "But you're going to do it anyway." He looked at her. "I think I already did. The moment I said yes." The episode aired 5 days later. The podcast was small but respected, an independent show called In Your Skin that focused on stories of rare diseases, medical errors, and underreported health crises. Liza's tone was warm, her edits careful. The conversation was gentle but clear. She let Alex speak without interruption, let him pause when the words caught, let silence do its work. They talked about the brush, the pain, the larva, the surgery. But mostly they talked about what came after. "The truth is," Alex said in the episode's final minutes, "I wasn't afraid of the thing inside me. Not really. I was afraid no one would care that it was there." The episode was downloaded 12,000 times in the first 48 hours. Then 27,000. Then 80,000. Emails started coming in, first to Liza, then directly to Alex. Some were one-liners. "I had the same brush." Others were longer, full of pain and memory and frustration. Tales of abscesses, infections, emergency room visits that ended in shrugs and antibiotics. One message read, "My husband had a similar swelling in 2022. Same product. ER said it was a cyst. It ruptured before they ever got to it. He lost partial facial nerve function. We never thought to report it, because they made it sound like nothing." Another, "I bought mine at a Rite Aid. Broke in less than a month. I remember the base cracking off and gluing it back on. Never thought that could be a health risk. The flood became a storm. A reporter from a local news affiliate reached out, then a larger station, then a national morning show. Alex declined the first two, but Maya pushed him on the third. If you're going to say something, she said, say it to the people who can't pretend they didn't hear it. The segment aired the following Tuesday. It was short, just under 5 minutes, but well produced. Alex appeared in a blue button-down with the scar just barely visible above the collar. The anchor introduced him as a man whose nightmare began with a simple shaving brush. The camera panned briefly to a close-up of the jar, the larva, the plastic ring. The anchor's voice dropped. Gentle Edge, the company responsible for the product, declined an on-camera interview. In a written statement, they said, quote, "We are conducting an internal review and take all consumer complaints seriously. At this time, no definitive link has been established between our product and the reported injury." Maya stared at the screen. "No definitive link?" she repeated. Alex shook his head. "They think silence is a strategy, but silence doesn't hold forever." That Friday, Alex received an email from a sender he didn't recognize. The subject line was simple. It's not just your brush. He opened it, expecting a personal story like the others. Instead, he found 3 attachments: internal Q&A memos from 2021, an export certification from a factory in rural Thailand, and a redacted incident report flagged unresolved from over a year ago. The message itself was only 2 lines. "I used to work at Gentle Edge. We logged over 30 reports of base fractures before your story aired. They told us to archive them quietly. You weren't the first, just the loudest. Don't stop now." There was no name, no return address, just the truth. Alex sat back in his chair, heart pounding. He clicked through the documents. Each one confirmed what he'd feared. The company had known. They'd seen this coming, and they'd chosen silence. He forwarded everything to Dr. Patel, then to Liza, then, finally, to the Consumer Product Safety Commission contact Maya had found weeks ago. This time, he wrote a cover letter. This time, he signed his name. By Sunday, the files had leaked. By Monday, the story was on the front page of 3 news outlets. By Wednesday, a consumer safety lawyer reached out asking if Alex would be willing to testify in a class action. He said yes. But that night, as Maya curled into him on the couch, her head resting gently on his unbandaged shoulder, he whispered, "I'm still scared." She looked up. "Of what?" "That I'll become the guy who had a bug in his neck," he said, "and not the guy who said something." "You were both," she said. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in weeks, he fell asleep before the credits rolled. Alex adjusted his collar 3 times before deciding to take the shirt off entirely and start over. The mirror above the hotel dresser caught the whole scene. Wrinkled tie, nervous shoulders, eyes that looked like they hadn't slept. Maya sat on the edge of the bed behind him, holding a printed version of his prepared remarks, thumbing through the pages like she might edit them again if he gave her the chance. "You don't have to be perfect," she said gently, not looking up. "I'm not worried about being perfect," he replied, buttoning his fresh shirt. "I'm worried about becoming a meme." She finally met his eyes in the mirror. If someone makes fun of you for surviving a parasitic infection caused by corporate negligence, they were never listening in the first place. He forced a smile. "So, you're saying I'm bulletproof now. I'm saying you're scarred. And that's stronger." He turned. "That in the speech?" Page 4. The hearing was being held via live stream, standard practice now for many congressional consumer safety subcommittees. The chamber was half full, in D.C., but hundreds more would be watching online. Liza, the podcast host, had flown in and would be sitting 3 rows back. Dr. Patel had submitted written testimony. Maya would be beside him the entire time. Before they left the hotel room, Alex took one last look in the mirror. The scar on his neck was still pink, but clean, noticeable but not shocking. He thought about covering it with makeup. He didn't. Let them see it, he told himself. Let them know it was real. The panel began with the usual introductions: names, districts, years of service, polite nods, C-SPAN level energy. Then the chairwoman, a silver-haired woman with glasses and a sharp voice, invited Alex to take the stand. He adjusted the microphone. The room was quiet. His heart wasn't. "My name is Alex Morel," he began, voice steadier than he expected. "I'm a 33-year-old freelance designer from Massachusetts. I'm also, apparently, the face of a very specific and very preventable type of injury." There were a few chuckles, not unkind ones. "In February of this year, I got a cut on my neck from shaving, normal, forgettable. But within days it had swollen, infected. A week later, I was in surgery, having a living parasite removed from the side of my face. The silence that followed was different, thicker, more alert." He continued. "They found a larva, botfly to be exact, feeding on the tissue beneath my skin. The only reason it survived, and thrived, was because of a plastic ring that broke off from the handle of a gentle-edge synthetic shaving brush. That plastic piece acted as a protective shell, a physical anchor that allowed the parasite to avoid detection and removal." He let the words sit. "I didn't know what was happening inside my body. I only knew something felt wrong, but the first hospital I visited didn't scan, didn't probe, didn't listen. They gave me antibiotics and sent me home." He glanced at the panel. "If my partner hadn't insisted I go back, if I hadn't been lucky enough to land in Dr. Patel's care, I might still be walking around with that thing inside me. Or worse." He paused, and even after it was removed, a second plastic shard was found near my carotid artery. "Missed in the first procedure. Left behind. I only caught it because I felt it." Again, another pause. This one longer. "I'm not a doctor. I'm not a politician. I'm not an activist. I'm just a guy who trusted a cheap product and a stretched healthcare system, and nearly paid for it with more than a scar." He lifted the jar. The larva floated inside, still and pale. "This isn't science fiction. This isn't the fringe. This is what happens when consumer safety is treated as optional, when companies wait for lawsuits before recalls, when hospitals rush patients out before real diagnostics, when we confuse affordability with disposability." He let his hands fall. "After I spoke publicly, dozens of people reached out to me, people who used the same brush, people who were ignored by doctors, people who thought what was happening to them was their fault." His voice cracked, just slightly. "It wasn't a beat. None of this had to happen. Not to me, not to them. But it did. And if you don't act, if nothing changes, it will happen again," he finished. The room stayed quiet for a full 5 seconds before the first question came. It wasn't hostile, not exactly, but it wasn't friendly either. A congressman from a southern district leaned forward and asked, "Mr. Morel, are you suggesting that every consumer product with a broken part is a lawsuit waiting to happen?" Alex blinked. "No, sir. I'm suggesting that every product with repeated consumer complaints, internal defect records, and documented injuries should be held to account before someone gets hurt, not after." The man didn't smile, but he didn't argue. After the hearing, Alex and Maya sat on the steps outside the building. The spring sun was soft, the air sharp. People walked past without knowing who he was. He liked that. His phone buzzed with notifications he didn't check. Maya broke the silence. "You did it." "No," Alex said. "I started it." She reached for his hand. A group of interns exited the building behind them, laughing loudly, one of them holding a soda. Alex turned and caught a glimpse of his own face on someone's phone screen. It was paused on the part where he held up the jar. For a second, he felt that old anxiety return, the bug guy feeling, but then the intern nodded in his direction and said, "That guy? He wasn't gross. He was honest." And just like that, something shifted. Alex stood, stretched his neck, felt the pull of healing tissue, and smiled. The email came 2 weeks after the hearing. Subject line, RE, CPSC action, official recall. Alex stared at the screen for a long moment before clicking. His hands didn't shake, but his breath did. The email was from a case manager at the Consumer Product Safety Commission. It was brief, direct, almost sterile in tone, but the words it carried were anything but. "Dear Mr. Morel, as of today, the CPSC has issued a formal nationwide recall for the following product: Gentle Edge Synthetic Shaving Brush, model 300 times, manufactured between 2020 to 2023. The recall cites a potential for product degradation, plastic fragment detachment, and secondary health hazards. All major retailers have been notified. The company has agreed to halt production and initiate a replacement or refund protocol for affected consumers. We thank you for your courage, testimony, and persistence. CPSC Office of Consumer Safety Reporting. He read it again, then again. Then he exhaled, a breath that felt like it had been stuck inside him since winter. Maya was in the kitchen when he called out. They recalled it. She didn't say what, or really, or finally. She just came to him and wrapped her arms around his chest from behind, resting her chin against his shoulder like she'd been waiting for that exact moment for days. Good, she said, and that was all. 2 days later, he received a FedEx envelope at the door. Inside, a letter from Gentle Edge's legal team. It wasn't threatening, just cautious. A formal acknowledgement of the recall, a polite reiteration of their continued commitment to consumer safety, and an invitation to participate in a rebuilding initiative to regain public trust. Attached was a second document, printed on glossy paper, full of corporate branding. A PR campaign outline. At the top, in bold, real people, real recovery below that, a mocked-up image of Alex holding a toothbrush and smiling. He wasn't wearing a shirt. The scar on his neck had been photoshopped out. They wanted him to be the face of their redemption arc. He placed the packet back in the envelope and fed the whole thing through the paper shredder. When Maya asked what it was, he just said, "They still don't get it," and she nodded, because they never had. The next morning, Alex did something strange. He took a laundry basket and walked through the house. Not to clean, not to pack, but to let go. The broken coffee grinder that never quite worked right, gone. The bent pair of kitchen scissors that always stuck, tossed. The plug-in heater with a frayed wire, finally in the trash. The bedside lamp with a loose socket that sparked once in December, removed. He made no big show of it, no commentary. Just moved quietly, room to room, gathering the things he'd lived with out of habit, out of cheapness, out of the very American comfort of almost works. The shaving brush hadn't been the first object to fail him, just the first to succeed in doing real harm, and that knowledge had changed him. When the basket was full, he took it outside to the garbage bin, lifted the lid, and dumped everything in one slow motion. It didn't feel dramatic. It felt like pruning. That night, Maya found him on the porch, sipping chamomile tea and watching the sunset paint stripes across the neighbor's garage. She didn't ask what he was thinking. He answered anyway. "I used to think scars meant survival," he said quietly. "And now? Now I think they're a reminder of what we live with too long." She sat beside him, pulling the blanket off the porch swing and draping it across their laps. "Are you glad you told the story?" He nodded. "But I don't want to be known for it." "You won't," she said. "But someone out there will recognize their own story in yours. And maybe they'll speak sooner. Maybe they'll throw something away before it becomes dangerous." He leaned back, closed his eyes. The wind carried the soft scent of cut grass and spring rain. In the quiet, a final thought settled in his mind. Not heavy, not bitter, just true. We live with small things too long, until they become dangerous, and this time he hadn't. Sometimes it's not the big disasters that harm us most. It's the tiny things we ignore, the crack we tape over, the warning we brush off, the broken tool we keep using because it's just easier that way. But small things grow, and sometimes they grow into something that leaves a scar. So maybe tonight you'll look around your own home, not with fear, but with care. Because survival doesn't just come from strength, it comes from paying attention. The question is, what small thing in your life have you been living with for too long? Let us know in the comments. We read every story. And if this story moved you, if it made you think, feel, or simply pause, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell, because we've got more true stories coming. Stories that stay with you long after the screen fades to black.